website or our blog, as you can see, is called The Beast That Is a Beauty. And I keep wanting to say Beauty and the Beast because it's a play on it, but it's The Beast That Is a Beauty. And as we go down here, we have how all of our posts are set up. And then we also have social medias down there, which are totally fake. And then we just have over here, we have the categories of our posts. We divided them into two separate categories based on the responses that we wrote. First, we're going to go through our personal reflections on the class itself. And Renee is going to do hers first.
All right, so in this class,
Yeah.
In this class, I really feel like I learned a lot, especially on what I can do in the future for writing papers, as well as how it affected me as a whole. And one thing I learned in this class is really how to use an article well to its full potential. And I developed a sort of series of steps that I tend to use, which I hadn't really done before, which is to read it in one sitting. This is best because then you get a better idea of the article as a whole. And highlighting important quotes, before this class, I would just read the article through and hope that I remembered some important fact from it later on. But I realized this isn't a good idea because you're bound to forget what was in there. You need to highlight and star things, and that's really helpful. And also allowing myself time for reflection after reading the articles, because in this I've allowed time for thought development, which I hadn't done before. I would hope to think of something immediately afterwards, but allowing even just 2 minutes to think about what was talked about and if I agreed with it or not was really helpful. And this has been especially useful in my psychology class, where we write current events papers, and it's 1 to 2 pages of personal thoughts. This was much more difficult before this class because I didn't allow myself time for personal reflection, and now it's much easier. And I also learned where beauty can be found in our many conversations. Like Cassidy said before, I never realized you could find beauty in so many places. Before I participated in this class, the word beauty would have popped an image of makeup products or an aesthetically pleasing face into my mind before, but now the word sparks images of people, art, still life photography, mathematics, photography, and a whole jumbled mess. And I also see beauty now where I would have totally missed it before, such as in my job in Walmart. You guys know I can't avoid that subject. I see beauty in the people there, and I noticed how I tend to judge people based on their appearance at Walmart. I would say, oh, that person has yellow teeth, homeless, or they have holes in their shirt, also homeless, or they have holes in their shirt and it's got a Versace little label on there, they're rich. But after this class, I realized how much I judged them for it, and I sort of removed my focus from it and focused on their internal beauty. And I also even found beauty in the setup of Walmart. I'm sorry guys, I know Walmart is not a fun topic, but bear with me. They set it up in an aesthetically pleasing way. Everything is in almost like a grid pattern, and even the products themselves could be considered beautiful because of their color scheme of them. And in the writing portion, I think the most important thing I learned is how to use an annotated bibliography well. I hadn't really used it properly before. I would think of it more as a checkpoint for the teacher to see, okay, you have 5 sources and you know what they're about. But this year I learned how to look at it and use it so I wouldn't have to go back to my articles. I would write down important quotes, facts, information, and I really used it to its full potential, and it was super helpful this year. And I also learned what kind of posts and articles you can use. Before I wouldn't have used anything outside of a .org, .edu, the basic ones. But after learning that I can research the author and use those kind of articles that are outside the typical norm, I used them and was able to use more research as well as the author is reliable for that. I'll pass it over to Cam.
So specifically more so regarding the writing part of writing and critical inquiry, the part that I really found most valuable for me in this class goes hand in hand with what Renee said, the whole research development process. As I started high school, I had never really written any long research papers that required lots of outside information and outside sources. I was really just good at, writing on the fly, writing my thoughts and having no backup to any of them. But then freshman year English class and sophomore year English class, we began writing really long papers and doing presentations on them, and as well as book reports and other long papers that we had to write. But then this year, my research development really kicked it up a notch. Like, I had never realized how much work really went into researching topics for papers before this year. And I definitely saw an improvement this year over the last couple of years where I would accidentally plagiarize a lot of my research paper. But this year I realized how much you really have to stress going through the entire source and making really good detailed notes. It's so easy for me to just be like, oh, here's a source, oh, here's a quote, I can use that, and then just not look at the paper at all. And yeah, I think I've just really learned how to better my research and in terms better my writing as well through the development of research. And then also in terms of critical inquiry, I really found it useful that in this class we took a lot of time to have discussions and look through multiple different sources, whether it be reading passages or watching videos or just looking at pictures of stuff. I thought it was really cool how we could just all bounce our ideas off of each other, and I saw that come through in my writing as well, just thinking about how other people viewed it and how I didn't certainly agree with everybody's, but I think that just bettered my argument in some cases. And I think as well as going back to the researching part, I think that I struggled with that a lot this year. That was probably my biggest weakness and biggest struggle in writing my final argumentative paper, but I think that through the struggle, I think I'm going to turn that into a strength in future writing projects. And I believe that that's all I have to say about my thoughts on the class. So next we're going to go over to our personal reflections just on beauty in general and how we developed those throughout the course of this semester.
So in my personal research, I found a wealth of fascinating information on the topic of advertisements and beauty and people. And this helped me to prove my point that ads should no longer incorporate models. I know that's really drastic, but that was my finding after looking at the effect that they have on children and teens. Their brains are so open to and easily molded by the world that they're really easily affected by advertisements with highly edited models. And now one might think the solution to this would be, oh, just tell them it's fake, duh. Put a warning label on there that says that it's edited. However, this doesn't help. One study on adult women disproved this, and it showed that these women knew full well that they were edited models, yet still said, I want to be like that, I want to look like that. And if this is what happens to adult women with fully developed brains, how much more will this affect children and teens? One can only imagine this. And it was actually found in another study that warning labels worsened the effects of the advertisements themselves by increasing the focus they had on the ads. It was almost like two arrows pointing at these ads because they were this way. And I found this to be really interesting. Another potential solution one might think of for this is having non-model-esque models with real-life imperfections, freckles, wrinkles, acne, etc. However, this does not resolve the issue. Studies on this solution still found that it increased the person's focus on themselves and their appearance, even causing them to dislike themselves and how they looked further. To directly quote an article I used in my research, the use of non-average models had the effect of increasing body-focused anxiety and body weight dissatisfaction. I think what can be learned from both of these is that by addressing this issue with these solutions, by changing the models themselves, you're really just creating this neon sign saying, look at me, look at this, it's changed. And once you look at it, it affects you more than if you hadn't noticed it, which you might not normally have noticed it before then. And I felt this increase in focus even in my own life, in seeing beauty and everything. I have noticed more often that the ads I've noticed the models in ads more than I would usually, and I've started to compare myself more, and I didn't even realize this was happening until this class, and so I can attest to this increased negative effect overall. I'll pass it on.
So my thoughts on beauty and my paper topic ended up being how women's and men's beauty standards are more similar than we actually realize. My argument specifically was that men's beauty and women's beauty look much more similar than different. That might sound really ridiculous at first, like looking here, Drew and Cassidy, how are they similar at all? Like, hair is different, clothes are different, shoes, jackets, how are they similar? But I actually found through a lot of research that when you bring it down to the very basics of what people look for, it's really a lot of similarities. I found two specific articles that were talking about. One was, I believe, 10 tips for men's beauty, and the other one was 12 tips for women's beauty. And when you boiled it all down, all of their similarities were much bigger than their differences. You could boil it down to basically all of the same plot points. It emphasized that you want to have clean looking brows, you want to have clean looking hair, highlight your skin and make sure you get rid of all your pimples, you want to dress nice. It all came down to basically the same thing. So basically men and women are, looking for the same type of look in each other's faces. And that's really how I went about researching my paper for points like that. And then also I just used statistics from different articles. And the one article I have quoted right here is from one that we read in class. It's called Sexism, Hostility Towards Women and Endorsement of Beauty Ideals and Practices. Are beauty ideals associated with oppressive beliefs? And the one line in this source that really stuck out to me was this one that I have highlighted and quoted here as well. That just talks about how women do have more high beauty standards than men, and how they obviously face more social influence over their beauty than men do, which I definitely agree with. Women definitely have to be beautiful more so than men do. Like, if you look at the celebrities of today's culture, every woman has to look a certain way in order for them to be successful, but not necessarily the same thing is true for men. But I just thought that this quote here kind of disregarded how men also face an immense amount of societal pressure to look like the certain stereotype. So that's what I really leaned into for my paper. And then also we have a picture page, which has to tie in with my last point from that article. But Renee is going to talk about her pictures first.
Yeah, my pictures are pretty simple. This is an ad for CoverGirl. It has Rihanna in it. This is something that a teenage girl or child, mostly teenage girls, I would think, would compare themselves to, despite the fact that it's pretty obvious that it's edited since no one has that perfect skin overall. And then if you look down here, I don't know how to scroll. Thank you. You can see, I'm sorry, she's scantily clad. I didn't realize. Anyways, you can see how much she was edited, and children and teens will compare themselves to this image and think that this is real. Women can look exactly like this, when in reality, she has imperfections of her own that make her unique, but society wants you to overlook that, and this is promoted in ads. I'll pass it back to Sharon.
And this is what my last point in that second blog post was about. This is the first picture that we ever looked at from Ansel Adams in our classroom discussion. And this photo really stuck out to me, and it really made me think about actually changing my topic mid-process of writing, just because of how this photo looks with the moon in the background and the coloring in it. It just reminded me of a certain shot from a Star Wars movie called Rogue One, and the shot is this one of the Death Star down here. And I'm actually really into film, and I'm thinking about going into film for my future career. So I was really interested in actually discovering that you can find, or you can evoke a sense of beauty from a shot from any cinema that you look at. And I was really interested in writing a paper about that, but I ended up sticking with my actual topic that I did end up writing about just because of shortage of time and lack of research. That's all we've got for our pictures.
Does anyone have any quick last minute questions?
Can you really quickly remind me of both of your actual arguments? So I know your research, just give us a quick refresher.
So my argument was that we should remove models from all advertisements due to their negative effect on children and teens.
Very cool.
My argument was that men and women's beauty standards are way more similar than we realize.
And one other follow-up question. If you were going to look from the other side, if you were going to, because an arguable thing has an other argument, what do you think, how would you phrase that on the other side of the argument? What might someone argue against you?
Someone might argue against me that, I mean, they could argue for either of the two solutions I mentioned, saying one can include non-average models and that could help with this, resolve this issue. Or they could say that by adding warning labels, you will remove the negative effect. Or you could say including models and advertisements have no effect on children and teens.
Very nice. Very nice. What else could you argue, Cam?
I feel like a counter argument to mine would be, since women are more, I guess I could say their value in society is more based on their looks than it is for men, that proves that women's beauty is more important or drastically different compared to men's.
Very cool. Very cool. Any other questions, guys? Let's give them a round of applause.